It happened in less than 5 seconds, but it would change everything. 1 second, the mascot was waving to a group of laughing toddlers near the bounce house. The next Blitz, a retired K9 German Shepherd known for his calm temperament, snapped his leash, lunged forward, and locked his jaws onto the fuzzy blue arm of the smiling, oversized chipmunk. Screams followed. Popcorn scattered. A mother dropped her iced coffee. In the middle of the chaos, Officer Amy Bennett, Blitz's handler, was wrestling her 90-pound partner off a man everyone assumed was just trying to entertain kids. But Blitz wouldn't let go. It wasn't the kind of bite you see in training drills. It was targeted, intentional, almost surgical. And yet, no one could understand why. The man inside the mascot suit staggered backward, yelping in panic through the thick foam head. Kids screamed. Parents cursed. Event security fumbled toward the scene, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the way. All anyone could see was fur, teeth, and terror. Amy's voice rang out like a rifle crack. Blitz off. He obeyed, but not immediately. When he finally released, it was slow, deliberate, like he wanted the message to sink in. He backed off, ears flattened, body tense. Amy clipped the leash back on, breathing hard, trying to calm him down as dozens of smartphones captured every second. The mascot crumpled to his knees, clutching his arm and moaning, still fully suited. Strangely, he refused to take off the mascot head, even when EMTs rushed in to help. He waved them off, muttering something about being fine, and then quickly disappeared behind the tent with a staffer. Amy stood in the middle of the festival walkway, heart pounding, Blitz sitting by her side, tail still stiff. Something was off. She knew Blitz. He was 12 now, retired from active duty for nearly 3 years. He'd been her partner from the day she was assigned to K9 Division. Bomb detection, narcotics, you name it. He had never misread a situation, never lunged without cause, never bitten someone in public, especially not a guy dressed in plush fabric surrounded by children. So why today? Why now? She didn't say it out loud, but deep down, Amy felt it. Blitz hadn't lost control. He wasn't confused. He was trying to warn her. And whatever he had sensed, it wasn't over. The fall festival was meant to be a light weekend shift, some PR work, showing off Blitz to kids, handing out stickers, maybe posing for photos near the dunk tank. Instead, Amy found herself in the staff medical tent giving a written statement, while Blitz paced behind her like a caged lion. "He's not aggressive," she said firmly, keeping her voice low. "There's a reason he reacted. I just don't know what it is yet." The event coordinator, a red-faced woman in a windbreaker and headset, wasn't having it. "You need to leave," she hissed. "That dog just attacked a performer in front of 50 children. We're getting calls. We're getting tagged. This is liability, Officer Bennett." Amy sighed. "We're not even on duty. This was a community engagement request." "Well, engagement's over," the woman snapped. "Take your attack dog and go." Amy didn't argue. She wasn't in the mood. She led Blitz back to her truck and opened the tailgate. He jumped in, but instead of lying down like usual, he remained seated, eyes fixed toward the festival grounds. His fur bristled slightly, his nose twitched. "What did you smell, boy?" she whispered, buckling her seatbelt. "What the hell did you smell?" If stories like this move you, uncover truths, and stir your love for loyal heroes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Heroes for Animals, where every dog has a story and every story leaves a mark. That night, Amy couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the scene, the way Blitz broke form, the tension in his body, the way he locked onto that mascot like he was trained to do in high-threat scenarios. She pulled up the event vendor list on her laptop. Bounce house company, hot dog stand, stage performers, petting zoo, balloon animals, face paint. Nothing unusual. She scrolled again. Chip and Friends Mascot Entertainment Company. One line, no phone number, just a placeholder website and a first name, Travis. She clicked the link. It led nowhere, just a blank page with the words coming soon. Weird. Amy narrowed her eyes. Something about that suit, the way the man moved, it didn't add up. She wasn't new to reading body language. She'd spent years watching suspects try to play normal while carrying secrets in their gait, their hands, their eyes. This guy, too stiff, too rehearsed, too fast to disappear. Amy turned to Blitz, who was lying at the foot of her bed. "You saw something, didn't you?" His tail thumped once. The next morning, Amy stopped by the community center where festival cleanup was underway. She didn't flash her badge. She wasn't technically working, just a curious citizen checking in. "Hey," she said to one of the janitors, a grizzled man stacking folding chairs. "That mascot from yesterday, did he leave his suit here by any chance?" The man wiped his brow with a bandana. "You mean the chipmunk guy?" "Yeah, he left in a hurry, ditched half his costume behind the stage. We tossed it in the bin out back." Amy's pulse quickened. She walked around the back of the building. There it was, blue fur poking from a dumpster, half covered in coffee cups and melted ice. Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, she tugged the mascot torso out of the trash. It smelled off, not like sweat or fabric. Chemical. Blitz, waiting in the back seat of the truck, began to growl low in his throat. Amy opened the car door. "Come here, boy." He leapt out and immediately sniffed the costume. His hackles rose. He growled again, teeth showing, not aggressive, but alert. Amy flipped the costume inside out, just fluff and foam. But then her fingers found something stiff beneath the interior lining. She tugged. A flap opened. Behind it, stitched into the belly padding, was a small zippered pouch, empty, but the smell was stronger now. Not sweat, not plastic. Solvent, tranquilizer, maybe something worse. Amy stood there holding the costume, heart pounding. Blitz sat at her feet, eyes fixed on the horizon like he was waiting for her next move. And deep down, Amy knew this wasn't just a bizarre dog bite incident. This was the beginning of something much, much darker, and Blitz had just uncovered the first thread. Would anyone believe her? Maybe not, but she would follow it anyway. Blitz wouldn't have reacted without a reason. And now it was her job to find out what he was trying to say before it was too late. Amy stared at the empty zippered pouch sewn into the mascot's belly, her breath shallow. She had seen plenty of strange things in her law enforcement career, but this was the kind of clue that didn't make sense on paper, but screamed danger if you knew how to listen. Blitz did. The old K-9 was already sitting rigid beside her, watching the horizon like he expected trouble to come walking out of the fog at any minute. Amy zipped the flap shut and shoved the mascot torso into a garbage bag she pulled from her trunk. She didn't want to draw attention. Not yet. She needed time to figure out what she was dealing with. As she tied the bag and slid it into the back seat, she caught herself whispering, "Good boy, Blitz. You saw something no one else did." Back at her small craftsman-style home on the edge of town, Blitz followed Amy inside and parked himself near the front window, still on edge. Amy laid the mascot suit out on her kitchen table, donning a pair of rubber gloves. She checked every seam and stitch for more hidden compartments, but found nothing. Just that one pouch and the faint smell of chemicals clinging to the foam like a bad memory. She sat down with her laptop and opened a private search tab. She typed, "Chloroform residue plus costume plus child abduction." Then, ketamine found in plush toys plus missing children. A dozen conspiracy theory blogs popped up, but buried beneath the noise was a report out of Kansas City. An incident at a children's birthday event where a hired mascot had been arrested after police found syringes sewn into his costume. She clicked on the archived article. The suspect pleaded guilty to possession, but never admitted intent. No children were harmed. Still, it was too close to ignore. Amy leaned back in her chair, her mind spinning. This couldn't be a coincidence. The next day, she called her old partner, Eric Delgado, who had transferred to a federal child exploitation task force the year before. "You're not working this, Amy," he warned after hearing the story. "You're not even on active duty." "I know. I'm not asking you to open a case," she said, her voice tight. "I just need to know if you've seen anything like this, mascots, public events, anything tied to missing kids." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I can't say much, but yes, it's a thing. A growing one." Amy's grip on the phone tightened. "You think I'm crazy?" "No," Eric said. I think you're about to find yourself knee-deep in something bigger than you realize." She looked over at Blitz, who was pacing again. "Then help me," she whispered. Off the record. Later that afternoon, Amy stopped by the sheriff's substation, not to stir up trouble, just to feel the temperature. She bumped into Deputy Rachel Meade in the parking lot, one of the few officers who had trained alongside her in Blitz's years back. "Didn't think I'd see you for a while," Rachel said, pulling off her sunglasses. "Word is the department's not thrilled about what happened at the festival." Amy forced a smile. "I'm not here to argue, just curious." Rachel gave her a look. "Curious enough to be here with a gym bag that smells like ammonia?" Amy hesitated. Off the record. Rachel raised a brow, but nodded. Amy pulled the bag halfway open to reveal the folded-up mascot torso. "You kept the suit," Rachel hissed. "That's evidence." "No, it's trash," Amy said evenly. "Nobody filed charges. Nobody claimed it. Nobody even knows who the guy in the costume was." Rachel's face darkened. "Wait, what?" Amy nodded. "That's the part no one's asking about." That night, Amy printed out a map of recent festivals and events hosted in surrounding counties over the past 6 months. She taped it to her wall and began cross-referencing with missing persons reports, specifically children. She found three separate cases in 3 different counties. Each one involved a child disappearing during a public event. In each case, a mascot or children's entertainer had been present, and all 3 events used the same entertainment booking company, Chip and Friends Mascot Entertainment Company, the same name from the vendor list at her festival. But there was no business registration in the state under that name. The tax ID led to a P.O. box in rural Kentucky. The phone number on file was out of service. This wasn't just shady, it was intentional. Somebody wanted to move freely, unnoticed, and they were using kids' laughter to cover their tracks. Amy's eyes locked onto the center of the map, where a pin marked her own town. She drew a circle around the overlap. Blitz lifted his head from the rug and stared at her. "Looks like we've got ourselves a pattern," she said softly. 3 nights later, a manila envelope showed up in her mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single blurry photo of Blitz sitting in her backyard, taken through a chain-link fence. Someone had circled his face in red ink. No note, no explanation, just that. Amy's stomach dropped. She rushed inside, locked the door, closed the blinds, and pulled her Glock from the gun safe. Blitz followed her room to room, silent but alert. Someone knew she was looking. Someone was watching. And now they were warning her to stop. Amy didn't sleep. Instead, she scoured her security cameras for signs of who dropped the envelope. Nothing. The footage from the past 24 hours had been wiped, corrupted somehow. They were careful. They were smart. But they'd made a mistake. They had underestimated the dog. The next morning, Blitz refused to eat. His nose was dry, his steps slower, but his eyes still sharp. Amy knelt beside him and rubbed his ears. "You still with me, old man?" He nuzzled her hand and let out a soft chuff. "You already found the first clue," she whispered. "We'll find the rest together." She sat back down at the table and pulled up her calendar. There was another community event next weekend in a nearby county. Same entertainment company scheduled to appear. And this time, Amy wouldn't just be showing up with a retired canine. She'd be walking into the lion's den with Blitz at her side and her eyes wide open. Saturday morning arrived cloaked in that uneasy silence before a storm, the kind that feels like something's holding its breath. Amy Bennett pulled into the county fairgrounds 2 hours before the gates opened. She parked behind a maintenance shed and ran her fingers along the leash clipped to Blitz's harness. The dog sat upright in the back seat, tail still, eyes scanning through the window like a sentry. "Stay sharp," she whispered. "This time we're watching first." No surprises. The event wasn't massive, just a regional harvest festival with hair rides, pumpkin carving, and a petting zoo. But according to the online vendor map, Chip and Friends Mascot Entertainment Company had reserved a booth on the main strip again, just like last time. And if they were here, Amy was going to find them. She wore plain jeans, a flannel shirt, and a ball cap pulled low over her face. No badge, no uniform. To the average passerby, She looked like any other early volunteer. Blitz walked calmly at her side, tail wagging gently to keep up appearances. "Let's blend," she murmured, steering toward the vendor check-in tent. Amy spotted a laminated schedule posted near the clipboard. Her eyes scanned quickly. There it was, 11 a.m., Kids Parade with Benny the Bear and Luna the Lamb, sponsored by Chip and Friends Mascots. 2 characters, 1 company, same pattern. But Amy noticed something else, too. Unlike every other group, Chip and Friends hadn't listed any individual names, just a generic email, and a phone number that looked suspiciously fake. 555-0042. She snapped a picture. Then she waited. At 10:53 a.m., the mascots emerged from behind a curtain near the children's tent, a tall, round bear in a faded brown suit with matted fur, and a smaller lamb with oversized floppy ears and a pink bow. They waved in unison, overly cheerful, surrounded by bubbles and upbeat music. Amy stiffened. Blitz did too. His posture changed the moment they appeared. His ears tilted. His nose twitched. His gait slowed. He looked not at the costumes, but at the person inside the bear. He knew. Amy crouched slightly and whispered, "Heel." They followed from a safe distance. The mascots made their rounds through the toddler zone, giving hugs, handing out candy, posing for pictures. Parents smiled. Kids laughed, but Amy was watching the bear's hands. Gloved, yes, but awkward. The fingers moved strangely. At one point, the bear guided a child aside to pose for a picture. The movement wasn't playful, it was controlling. Blitz growled low. Amy reached into her bag and pressed record on a small GoPro clipped to the strap. She kept walking as they circled back around the corn maze entrance. She saw it, a black van idling just past the service gate, away from the main parking lot. No logo, no tags, tinted windows. That was it. There was no doubt now. They were using these characters as cover. Amy followed the mascots as they finished their routine and disappeared behind the tent again. She waited 30 seconds, then slipped around the side. Behind the canvas divider was a folding table, 2 water bottles, and costume heads removed and resting on crates. No one else. She heard movement inside the storage trailer behind them, locked tight with a chain looped through the handle. Amy leaned in and listened. A voice, muffled, not adult. She turned to Blitz. He was locked in place, ears pinned forward, tail stiff. A sound came again, a quiet thump, like something falling over. Amy scanned the area, empty. No security, no staff, just shadows and quiet. Then she acted. She grabbed the tire iron from her trunk and circled back to the trailer. Blitz followed, his nose nearly pressed to the seam of the metal door. Amy wedged the iron under the latch and twisted hard. It popped. Inside, the air was hot and stale. Stacks of costume boxes lined one wall. A cooler hummed in the back corner. And there, curled into the corner behind a hanging black tarp, was a girl, tiny, pale, barefoot. Her wrists were bound loosely with duct tape, her mouth covered with a child-sized surgical mask. She blinked, dazed and confused, like she'd just woken from something heavy. Amy's throat tightened. Hey, sweetie. You're okay. I'm here to help." Blitz crawled forward on his belly, his snout brushing gently against her arm. The girl flinched, then froze. Blitz let out a soft whimper and licked her hand. Amy carefully peeled the tape from her wrists and scooped the girl into her arms. "You're safe now," she whispered, but her mind was already racing. This wasn't just random. This girl wasn't just lost. They'd taken her, and Blitz had known the whole time. Amy rushed back to her truck and locked the doors, calling 911 from the dash. "This is former Officer Amy Bennett," she said, voice trembling. "I have a child recovered from an attempted abduction at the Fairview County Harvest Festival. Suspect is disguised as a mascot. They may be armed. I need backup now." As she hung up, she turned to the girl. "What's your name?" The girl's voice cracked. Kay, I'm going to keep you safe. You're okay. You're okay." In the rearview mirror, Blitz remained seated, eyes trained on the curtain flap of the mascot tent, his body still ready to fight. Sirens echoed in the distance. Amy didn't blink. The rest came quickly. Fairview PD swarmed the lot within 10 minutes. The van was empty, abandoned. The bear mascot was caught near the porta-potties trying to burn the costume in a metal trash barrel. He had a fake ID, a prepaid flip phone, and a duffel bag filled with burner wigs and candy labeled for allergy-prone children. His real name was Todd Rickles, a paroled sex offender with interstate warrants. The woman in the lamb suit had vanished. Kay was 7 years old. She'd been missing for 4 days from a rest stop 120 miles south. Her parents were driving home from visiting grandparents when she disappeared from the bathroom stall while her father pumped gas. She hadn't said a word since being found, but she clung to Blitz like he was her only lifeline to something that still felt human. That evening, Amy sat on her back porch, the sun dipping behind the trees, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she couldn't drink. Blitz rested beside her, eyes closed, his head heavy on her foot. "You saw it," she whispered, before anyone else did again. She reached down and scratched behind his ear. "You don't have words, but you've always told the truth." In her chest, something broke open, a quiet understanding of just how many times this dog had saved her from things no one else could see. Blitz let out a long sigh and nestled deeper into her shoe. Amy looked out into the darkening sky, heart still rattled. This wasn't over. Not yet. She didn't know how far the network reached or how many others were out there wearing fuzzy suits and fake smiles, but thanks to Blitz, one child was going home tonight, and that was enough to keep going. 3 days had passed since Amy found Kay locked in the back of that trailer. And in that time, the world hadn't stopped spinning. The story had hit local news within hours. Retired K-9 and ex-officer save abducted girl at county fair. K-9 Blitz, the dog who refused to ignore the truth. From parade to predator, mascot arrest tied to missing child case. Everyone wanted an interview. Amy declined them all. It wasn't about the attention. It never had been. Blitz wasn't a hero for headlines. He was a working dog, a partner. And even now, older, slower, scarred by time, he had done what no human managed to do. See through a performance designed to fool everyone. But the more Amy thought about it, the more something gnawed at her. Why that girl? Why that fair? And more importantly, why so carefully staged? Amy's phone buzzed. It was Eric Delgado. "I ran the plates on the van," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. Switched. Original owner reported it stolen 2 weeks ago in Nashville. That matches Kay's timeline. She paced across her living room, Blitz following every step with sleepy eyes from the couch. "And the guy we caught?" He lawyered up, but his prints match at least 3 open files from Utah, Kansas, and Georgia. All unresolved, all missing children. Amy's chest tightened. He's not working alone. No. And this whole thing feels like a test run. Almost like logistics. Trial and error. Amy stopped pacing. "You think there's a network?" Eric was quiet for a second. Then, "I think there's a pattern. And I think you and Blitz just kicked a hornet's nest." That night, Amy opened the thick folder she had compiled over the past 6 days. Names, photos, event flyers, notes in the margins, colored pins on a map taped across her hallway wall. It was starting to look less like coincidence and more like strategy. She marked red pins for children under 10 reported missing during community events. Blue pins for sightings of Chip and Friends mascot entertainment. Yellow for confirmed law enforcement reports mentioning substances like chloroform or ketamine in the vicinity. She stepped back. The clusters weren't random. Every single child had gone missing within a 200-mile radius of where Amy now stood. A radius that formed a loose but deliberate circuit, almost like a touring schedule. It was no longer a theory. It was a system. Blitz pawed at the back door. Amy opened it, letting the night air roll in. He stepped out onto the porch and stared into the trees, unmoving. She followed and sat beside him, her eyes drawn to the shadows beyond the fence. The silence pressed in. "You felt it before I did," she whispered. Blitz looked up, then turned back to the trees, his body still. Amy's phone dinged. A single message from an unlisted number. "You should have left it alone." Attached was a photo of Amy, taken from across the street, walking into her own house. The next morning, she filed an anonymous tip to the FBI Cybercrimes Division with every document she had: photos, patterns, the mascot company's fake registration. She didn't care if she got credit. She just wanted backup, real backup, because something told her it was about to get worse. 2 days later, Eric called again. They found another trailer, he said, voice-heavy, abandoned on the outskirts of a town in Arkansas. Same setup, same type of mascot suit. No child this time, but what? They found hair, blood, small footprints. Something happened there. Amy clenched her jaw. Who's running this circus? Eric hesitated. We've pulled security footage from past events. And there's one guy who shows up in the background of at least 4 of them. Never in costume, always standing back, watching. Amy flipped open her laptop. Send me his face. When the image loaded, she leaned in. A tall man, clean-cut, mid-40s, sunglasses, always near staff-only areas, hands in pockets, no visible badge, no logo, just there. He looks like a vendor, she said. Or maybe private security. Or something else. Eric said, we think he's coordinating. Amy printed the photo and tacked it next to the map. She labeled him, unknown male, possible supervisor. Then she looked at Blitz. The old dog shifted slightly, but didn't move from the rug. Still got one more in you? She asked gently. His tail thumped once. Amy opened her laptop and searched for upcoming events, still listing Chip and Friends as an active vendor. Just one, a large Halloween carnival in 2 days in her own town. She drove out to the carnival grounds that evening, the sun low behind distant pines. Workers were setting up tents, stringing lights, testing sound systems. She parked near the far lot and walked slowly, watching. And then she saw it, a truck, not black this time, but gray, plain, parked beside a trailer labeled catering unit. But she recognized the partial plate number, 1 digit off from the stolen van. They were here early, scouting, planning. She pulled back, took a photo, and slipped away before anyone noticed. Back in the truck, Blitz lifted his head from a seat. We found them, she whispered. But now comes the hard part. Amy spent that night prepping. She checked Blitz's gear, fitted him with his old K9 vest, not for protection. He was too old for a takedown, but for presence. She added a new GoPro to her shoulder strap, charged 2 burner phones, loaded fresh batteries into the dash cam. She had one goal: catch them in the act, expose everything. When the carnival opened the next evening, Amy was already there, blending into the crowd with her coffee cup, baseball cap, and sharp eyes. Blitz walked beside her, quiet but observant. They passed booths of candy, games, and laughter. But then, just past the carousel, Amy saw him, the man from the photo. He was leaning against a utility post, watching the crowd, wearing a staff badge that said Operations. His sunglasses were perched on his head now. He didn't see her, but Blitz saw him, and that was enough. Amy turned and walked casually in the opposite direction, pulling out her phone to start the recording. She didn't know how this night would end. But one thing was certain: Blitz wasn't done yet. The smell of fried dough and kettle corn hung in the air, but Amy wasn't thinking about food. She wasn't here to enjoy the carnival, not with Blitz walking stiff at her side, his nose twitching like radar. She was here to catch a predator, and she was almost certain he was already watching her. The man from the surveillance photos, the one tied to at least 4 missing child cases, was standing just outside the maze attraction, wearing a staff badge clipped to a lanyard and a Navy windbreaker labeled Logistics. He looked like someone you wouldn't remember 5 minutes later. Average, calm, boring. But Blitz didn't buy it. Neither did Amy. They kept their distance, circling the fairgrounds slowly, waiting. She knew better than to confront someone without cause. No weapon, no warrant, no backup. But she wasn't here to make an arrest. She was here to observe, record, and if she had to, intervene. The target always moved just enough to avoid being still, like a shark cruising for an opening. At 7:24 p.m., as the sun dipped behind the pine trees and Halloween lights blinked to life around the carnival tents, Amy saw something shift. The logistics man tapped his earpiece and walked casually toward the far end of the grounds. Blitz growled. Amy followed. They passed the dunk tank, the haunted house line, and the face-painting booth, finally stopping near a small white truck parked behind the stage. The man opened the rear door, stepped inside, and re-emerged less than 30 seconds later, alone. Amy's hand closed around her phone. She walked faster. That's when Blitz stopped, dead still, head raised, nose flaring. And then from the truck came a muffled bang. Amy broke into a run, throwing the door open. Inside was a child, a boy, maybe 5 or 6, curled in a dog crate lined with foam, shivering and half-conscious. Amy's heart leapt into her throat. She dropped to her knees and checked his pulse. Thready, but there. Blitz let out a sharp bark, once loud a warning. Footsteps pounded behind them. Amy turned just as the logistics man lunged forward, eyes wide with panic. She raised her voice, firm and clear. Back up. But he didn't listen. Blitz launched, not teeth first, but with a body block that hit the man square in the thigh, knocking him sideways into the trailer wall. It gave Amy just enough time to grab her pepper spray and hit him in the face. He howled, clutching his eyes and stumbling backward. Amy pulled the boy out of the crate and wrapped him in her flannel jacket. Blitz heel. The German shepherd stayed close, growling low. Amy grabbed her burner phone and hit record. "I want everyone to see this," she whispered. Carnival security arrived 2 minutes later, too late to do anything but detain the man as he screamed and cursed, stumbling through pepper spray tears. The boy was rushed to the medical tent. He didn't speak. Amy stayed with him. She learned his name was Eli. Eli had gone missing from a campground just 3 nights earlier. His parents thought he'd wandered into the woods. Search parties had been called off yesterday. But Amy knew now he hadn't wandered. He'd been taken, targeted. Later that night, Amy sat in the back of an ambulance as paramedics examined Eli. She held her phone in her lap, reviewing the footage. Blitz blocking the man's path, Amy pulling the child out, the suspect lunging. It wasn't just evidence. It was the end of the lie. No more fuzzy suits, no more fake vendor names, just cold, ugly truth. Eric Delgado called her around midnight. "You got him," he said. "That's the guy. He's the one we've been tracking." Amy exhaled slowly. "It's bigger than him." "We know. He's talking." She looked over at Blitz, who had finally lain down near the tire of the ambulance, his eyes closing. "How many kids, Eric?" "Too many." A pause. "But because of you and Blitz, we're going to find the rest." The next morning, the town square was quieter than usual. The carnival had been shut down. Crime scene tape fluttered in the wind, and police cars lined the street. Amy sat on the courthouse steps with Blitz resting against her leg. She hadn't slept, but for the first time in weeks, her hands weren't shaking. Eli was with his parents again. Kay had started to talk, and the man behind the curtain, the one coordinating it all, was in custody. There were still loose threads, yes, other names, other faces, but the veil had been lifted. No more hiding behind cartoon eyes and oversized paws. No more innocence weaponized for evil. Blitz nudged her hand gently. She looked down. His ears were low, tail thumping once. "You did good, old man," she said softly. "You saw them." He leaned into her leg and closed his eyes. That afternoon, Amy visited the police station, not to rejoin, not to explain. She handed over a full report. Every photo, every timeline, every message, every audio file from the burner phone. She asked for no press, no badge, just one request. "If anyone tries to bring Chip and friends back into any county in this state," she told the chief, "you shut it down before the tent poles go up." He nodded. And this time, he meant it. Later that week, Amy and Blitz were invited to a small gathering hosted by Eli's family, just a backyard cookout, some neighbors, and a banner drawn in crayon that read, "Thank you, Blitz." There were no reporters, just people. Blitz got more hot dog bites than he probably should have, but no one stopped him. Amy sat on the porch swing and watched the boy laugh as he tossed a tennis ball across the yard. Blitz caught it, wagged, and laid it at his feet. Eli leaned down and whispered something to him. Blitz looked up and licked his nose. Amy smiled. Some wounds didn't need words, just time and trust. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the backyard, one of the guests approached Amy with a quiet question. "How did you know?" She thought for a long moment, then answered, "I didn't, but he did, and that was the truth." Because Blitz had never cared about the mask. He always smelled the man beneath it. A month later, the frost came early. Thin sheets of ice stretched across the birdbath in Amy's backyard. The morning sun tried to push through the gray Tennessee sky, but everything felt muted, slower, more still. Blitz didn't mind. The aging German shepherd lay under the porch swing, his head resting on a folded flannel blanket, ears flicking occasionally at the sound of a passing car. Amy stepped outside with 2 mugs of coffee, one for her and one just for the warmth of holding it. She looked down at her partner, the same way she had every day for the last 10 years. "You ready to take it easy for real this time?" she asked. Blitz didn't move much these days. His joints were stiff, his gait more of a shuffle than a stride, but his eyes still sparkled with alertness, that same fierce calm that had stopped predators hiding behind plush fur and parade music. Amy sat next to him on the porch steps. The trial was set to begin next week. The man in the logistics vest had confessed. Names, locations, drop points, encrypted messaging systems tied to shell entertainment businesses across 5 states. He hadn't known everything, but he knew enough to bring down half the operation. Federal agents credited Amy with the initial lead. But Amy, she credited Blitz. "He knew," she said softly during the last debrief, "long before I did. He never needed a warrant or a press conference. He just followed the scent of something wrong." And now people were starting to listen. Eli's parents had set up a foundation in his name, Second Scent, to fund retired K-9 dogs being trained in new work with missing person investigations. A month ago, it was a novelty idea. Now it had real traction. Blitz was their first ambassador. Local schools invited Amy and Blitz for safety talks. Parents brought their kids just to meet the dog who saw through the costume. He even had a small bronze plaque placed outside the county fairgrounds, but none of it mattered much to Blitz. He still preferred cold mornings, long naps, and one tennis ball, now faded and cracked, that he refused to part with. One afternoon, Amy received a letter in the mail. No return address, just a small envelope, and inside it a folded drawing, crayon lines, stick figures, a big dog beside a smiling child holding a leash. At the bottom, "Thank you for saving me. Love, Kay." Amy felt something deep give way. She placed the picture on the fridge and stared at it for a long time. Blitz watched her from the rug, as if he understood. "Yeah," she whispered. "You saved her too." A week before the trial, Amy took Blitz to the vet for a checkup. His breathing had been heavier, his steps a little more unsure. The vet gave her the look before saying the words she already knew were coming. "It's time to start making him comfortable, Amy. His body's telling us what his loyalty won't." Amy nodded. Blitz had always been more than muscle and obedience. He had been her shield, her compass, and she wasn't going to let him suffer. The next few days were slow and quiet. Amy cooked him chicken and rice, let him sleep in her bed again, brushed his coat while old jazz records played softly in the background. They went for one last walk along the trail by the river. Blitz couldn't make it far, but he didn't need to. He just needed to sniff the fall air and feel the leaves under his paws. And Amy needed to remember how it felt to walk beside him, free, alert, safe. She whispered stories to him about Kay, about Eli, about the little boy from across the street who asked if Blitz had superpowers. Maybe he did, she said. Maybe knowing the difference between a mascot and a monster was a kind of superpower. Blitz passed quietly one night with his head on Amy's lap under the soft yellow porch light they'd sat beneath so many times. Amy didn't cry right away. She just held him. The next morning, she buried him beneath the sugar maple near the fence, the same spot he used to patrol every morning like clockwork. She carved a stone marker herself. Blitz, partner, protector, always watching. Neighbors came by with flowers. Kay's mother sent a framed version of her daughter's drawing. And that evening, as the wind moved through the trees and the sun dipped low, Amy sat alone with her coffee, staring at the quiet yard. She felt a hollow ache, but also something more, peace. Blitz had done what few humans could. He uncovered the truth, protected the innocent, and taught everyone who heard his story that loyalty doesn't retire. And instinct is never wrong. A few days later, Amy stood in a courtroom packed with journalists, federal investigators, and two families in the front row whose children had been returned. When the sentence came down, life without parole, there wasn't applause, just silence, and then, slowly, the sound of someone quietly sobbing. Amy never said a word. She simply stood and walked out into the sunlight. Her story, and Blitz's, was already told. And it was being told again every time someone whispered, "That's the dog who knew." Now, months later, Amy still visits local shelters, checking in with working dogs who don't have a badge anymore. She helps retrain them, rehomes a few. Sometimes a little boy or girl will stop and ask if the dog they're petting can sniff out bad guys, too. Amy always smiles and says the same thing, only if they're really hiding. And somewhere deep down, she still hears Blitz's bark cutting through the noise of a fairground, still sees that chipped mascot arm hit the ground, still feels the moment everything changed because a dog refused to let a lie walk by unnoticed. Thank you for following Blitz's story. His loyalty, courage, and instinct helped bring children home, shine a light on hidden evil, and prove that sometimes a dog's heart sees clearer than a human's eyes. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where an animal sensed danger before anyone else? Or did something you couldn't explain? Share your story in the comments below and help us honor the silent heroes among us. And if Blitz's story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, where true stories of courage, loyalty, and second chances come to life.